Does anybody have any questions? Because we can go ahead and start warming up. I know there was one that came in kind of late from Margie. I don't see Margie here right now. But we will start at 7, and I'm waiting to see if Rose and Bruce come in because they're new, and we'll have to run them through the stuff that nobody else needs to see about your chat and your microphone and camera and stuff. But if you've got a question, we have too much stuff. Well, we always have too much stuff. There's always so much going on. But right now, this is the time of year when you walk outside, and if you don't stay focused, you can become a squirrel out there running from here, running to there, running to the other place. But it's so lush and so green and so much going on out there right now. So we captured a bunch of things on pictures that we could tell you about, but we're hoping that other people are kind of in the same boat and have things to talk about. And we'll spend that first half hour on questions before we get into ferns, which I am looking forward to. I have my fern encyclopedia next to me. I took a whole college semester on ferns, just on ferns. And I own this thick fern encyclopedia. It's where I look up ferns that people tell me about. And yet I still only know about 5, maybe 6 ferns that I can say, okay, I know that fern. I know what you call it commonly. I know what its scientific name is. And I think I know where they grow. But all the rest of them, I end up putting under F for ferns. And there's some very cool ones. So I'm looking forward to hearing Pierre talk about them. He really wanted to talk about ferns. He had such fun talking to us about perennials. He said, I want to do that again, and I want to talk about ferns. I said, okay, I didn't realize you were a fern guy. Of course, he's been all over the world, Pierre Benrup, gathering new plants and well, not new plants. It's kind of interesting what the plant explorers do once plant perennial sales. Oh, right in the late 80s, perennial sales got enough steam going that growers were able to start going to places like Chile and Cuba and China and Siberia and the Koreas to find plants that weren't currently growing already as ornamentals. And what they would do is they would come as a group into a town, for say maybe out at the edge of a big forested area or otherwise natural area. And they would ask someone in the town, tell us what grows around here. And someone in the town would take them around and kind of take them on a wildflower walk and point at this and point at that. And they'd go, oh, we've discovered a new plant. I mean, it's been there the whole time. But they got to the point where when GPS started happening, they could go out looking around with the native naturalists, whoever it is who knew the plants. And when they found a plant, now they'd want to collect seed from it, but it might not be at the time of year when the seed is ripe. So they would mark it on a GPS so that they could come right back to the same one later to catch that one that was a particular color or whatever. And Pierre's been all over doing that. So he has seen some ferns, and he's seen where they actually grow. He was telling me about one. I should let him tell about it. It's one that is native in the New England states, but he thinks is no longer there in Connecticut, that it's been wiped out in Connecticut. And it doesn't even look like a fern, but it's a fern. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand or chat them. Oh, I see there is a chat in there. My husband, who will watch the chat a little bit later, Stephen, is feeding the dogs and trying to convince them to stay in a quiet area. A kind of garden-related question. A groundhog has been hanging around. It isn't bothering my gardens. And every time I go outside, it runs into the garage. Suggestions for deterring it. No chemicals because my gardens are totally organic. Well, our dogs are deterrents for the groundhogs. The groundhogs are pretty nasty. I wouldn't send a dog to chase a groundhog, but if there are dogs around, groundhogs generally don't come into the area. So you might be able to use a repellent spray that's for groundhogs. There are some that are for rabbits and deer, and others that are for fox. So you basically be putting down a scent of a coyote or a fox, probably a coyote. So there's coyote urine. You could put a line of coyote urine someplace. I'm not sure what else. I'm surprised it's not bothering your garden. Ours comes up to the front door. Dogs are on the side of the door. The groundhog will come right up to the front door. and look in, and then walk over to the bird feeder and eat the sunflowers volunteers that have come up from the seed the birds drop. And then it'll go out in the lawn and it'll spend some time eating the Dutch white clover that's out in the lawn, and it really seems to like that. And then it heads straight for the purple coneflower, which last year survived being eaten and eaten and eaten and eaten, and bloomed late and short. They bloomed a month late and only about this tall. So, and they also eat roses. I thought he was after my tomato the other day, but he got by. But that's what I would do. I would try putting some kind of deterrent that would persuade the groundhog to not run in that way. Stephen has logged in. Oh, and I'm supposed to be watching for Pierre and Cheryl, who might be in early too. Pierre, Cheryl. No.
So you got the recording going.
I did. I started that recording before I even shared the screen. I thought we forgot to hit record for the first time in a long, long time, probably the first time in 100 webinars. And so Steve and I had to sit by ourselves and re-record without the fun of having other people to chime in and talk about things. Looking into the slide, and my dog is, yeah, an 80-pound dog and a groundhog standing right there. Yeah, they are bold characters. They really are. Have you had one whistle at you, stand up and make this high-pitched noise? But they'll say, come on, bring it on, bring it on. They also climb really well. I've seen them go up trees like a leopard. I mean, they're just up the tree. I'll find them up a mulberry tree eating mulberry leaves in the early spring, or up an apple tree plucking the apples and eating it. We believe that all living things have a place. So I have occasionally trapped groundhogs for clients and moved them someplace else. And what I see is terror, total terror on the animal's face when you let it out. And I think I'm not letting it out into a vacuum. There's already other animals living here. This is not fair to do. We're fortunate in that we have coyotes living less than a mile away. We can hear them howling in the recreation area, and occasionally see one trotting down the street, which means we don't see our fox very much, because foxes don't like being with coyotes. But coyotes do a pretty good job of taking care of small groundhog children as they come around. Other questions?
You answered the groundhog one.
Yeah, we've been talking about
Then
that.
Barb has a hand up.
Okay, Barb, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I hope you have
Good
time
evening.
for this question. My neighbor asked me to look at his roses. I believe they're the next generation of the carpet roses, I think.
Yeah.
Petite version. They're getting eaten alive, apparently, and this is the second year this has happened. We found worms on them, so I think it's a sawfly larvae.
Yeah, probably.
The question I had, or the question he had, is should he just get rid of them and put something else? This is in front of his house, okay? Or should he like pursue spraying and all this other kind of stuff? I thought those carpet roses were like, they had viruses and they had all this other kind of stuff. So I thought they were kind of out of favor these days. So what is your opinion on this?
My opinion on go ahead, Steve.
My opinion is, if you have to spray anything, then find a way to get rid of it. And roses are high maintenance. I don't care what kind you get. They are.
Right.
Sorry, but that's just
It's true. They are high maintenance because they grow fast, they grow quickly, and anything that grows quickly tends to have a lot of pests that go with it. And they've been grown a lot in a lot of places, and so they brought exotic pests as well. The thing about roses is you could break that cycle. You could get a year of not so many rose slugs, the sawfly larvae that come in there, by going out there religiously and picking them off when you see them, or spraying if you wanted to do that. But there's no guarantee that you're not going to end up with another influx of them coming from someplace else. So if this is not somebody who likes to garden, who likes to go out and do this kind of stuff, who likes roses enough, like our son-in-law does, to go out and do this stuff, then something else is better. Spireas, Deutzias, some of the hydrangeas. And I should not get lost here, because we want to start. We have just a few minutes left, and we have a couple of new people who just joined the community. Plus, this is free for all, so almost anybody can be here. We just want to make sure that people know that your microphone should be muted and your camera should be off, which means they both should have a nice red slash through them. If you want to contribute to the conversation there and we open up for questions and answers, you can raise your hand or chat for your questions, but we can't have so many people all having things turned on. So if you find your chat button, if you open up the chat, make sure that you're chatting to the whole group, the meeting group chat. Don't dial that bar to Janet or Steve or Janet and Steve, because we're not very, Steve is going to watch the chat, but he's watching the whole group chat. He's not watching back and forth. So make sure you're sending to everybody. And all you got to do is type something in there. Just get close to what you want to do and we'll probably figure it out. And then it'll pop up to the top and we can handle those in order. Steve is keeping track of what comes in and he'll tell us about that as it comes in. If you want to speak rather than type, then when we get to a question session, in either your reactions field, there's a raise your hand control, or it might be right in your participants menu if you open your participants menu. But if you raise your hand, you'll pop to the top of the list. Steve will see you, and when it comes time for questions, he'll say, okay, it's your turn first. And then you can turn on your microphone and we can talk aloud. And what this warm-up period for is so that we have time to say that, and also so that people can ask questions. We got a question from Barb Sturtz. She said, what happened to my Lysimachia? Some people call it golden coins or golden creeping Jenny. She said it was a great ground cover between my perennials and the daffodils came up right through it. And it was there for 7 years. And I look at it this year and boom, it's gone. It's just gone. Well, this is a sawfly too, almost certainly. There's a sawfly that eats Lysimachia. It's a little gray worm. The sawflies are the larvae of various little creatures that look like gnats. They're wasp relatives, but they look like gnats. And they are voracious eaters. And they have one big season a year, and they have their big season at your garden. Now, they ate all the leaves, but the plants are probably not dead. They're probably going to leaf back out again, because if they were there that long, they're in good shape. So give it a little while, let it leaf back out again. Can you stop it next year? They might not be as heavy next year. We definitely have a heavy year this year. Right, red spider mites, for instance, are on everything. As we go along today, if we get to any of those particular pictures that come up, I can tell you, Steve was taking this beautiful picture. And if you look close, there's a red dot over there. There's a red dot on that one, and there's a red dot on that one. So it was a mild winter, and a lot of things apparently lived through.
And one thing I wanted to say, when we give people suggestions to try something or do something, we'd like to hear back on how it worked, because we're not the greatest, we're not 100% perfect, and we also like to know what happens.
Yeah, we can recommend.
Thank you.
And it's just like what we do. We go out and we try something and say, well, that didn't work. And we try to tell you the things that did work, but sometimes we're blue sky in it. As with the Cindy sent a picture of it's her brother's lilac tree, and it is not doing well. It's not too far from her viburnum that wasn't doing well, and she thinks maybe they might be related. The problem might be related. I don't think so, though. She said it was doing okay, but it had some dead branches, and this does not look like it's doing okay to me. It's chlorotic. The leaves are in bunches rather than all distributed all across the tree. This is a dwarf lilac grafted to a standard. So it's a dwarf lilac like Miss Kim, grafted to a straight trunk to make it into a little lollipop tree. And branches were dying in there. You can see that there's bare spaces. And it looks like this has had some winter damage where the weight of snow or ice was on it and split some of the weaker stems. And it is suckering from the trunk because the grafted part, the part that is the dwarf lilac, is dying back. And so the plant is using the carbohydrates that it has to make sprouts down there. The lichen is not a disease and is not hurting the plant, but the lichen is getting thicker because more sun is getting to it. Lichens are a combination of a fungus and an algae. Fungus and an algae, yeah. And it's a symbiotic relationship. And they're all over the place. They're not hurting anything. They're just using the plant as a place to get the sun that they need. And as the lilac thins out, boom, you get more lichen. So when you see lichen increasing on a plant, then you start looking at what's gone wrong with the plant. And what's going wrong with this one might be a bacterial infection, which it would get if it was weak. That's the graft, that enlarged part right there. And the dark coloration in it and the cracks in it indicate that the graft is giving way, is cutting loose, and that's weakening the branches. And that can be just graft incompatibility. You can have a plant that's grafted for 10, 15 years, and then it shakes the graft. It gets the...
It happens quite a bit sometimes with certain species like little leaf linden. You get a rash of them sometimes that they just all of a sudden fell over, and you could see they threw the graft.
Yeah, yeah. And once it gets weak like that, then it's open to an infection. There's an infection called Pseudomonas syringae. That's Pseudomonas of lilacs. I mean, it is specific to lilacs. And once the plant got weak and there were cracks in there and moisture, if you water this heavily at the root, or you water it heavily so that that graft and the cracks are always staying wet, it sets up a situation where the bacteria gets in. So I don't think you're going to be able to save this particular tree. And as a not big fan of the grafted tree lilacs, because they take regular pruning to keep the branches from getting too big and the top to getting too heavy, I would say it's time for a new one. The crack at the bottom probably has nothing to do with it. It is going straight into the ground, as Steve pointed out, but it's a grafted plant that they're what do you call them? They're manufactured items anyway. They don't
Yep.
they don't really have a standard way of dealing with the world.
Okay, we need to start.
Yep, let's get going. So this is Free for All Friday. Welcome to those of you who are here who know what we're doing, and welcome to those of you who came just to see what's going on. Everybody's welcome. We're celebrating growing and we're cultivating problem solving here. They're coming to you from gardenataz.org. I'm Janet McConovich.
I'm Stephen Nicola.
And this is our eighth time of trying this way of having gardeners talk to each other. That's us. We're also, I hope, in the picture on your screen. And we've been putting what we've been writing for 30 some years, we've been putting together onto our website so that we don't have to write the same thing twice. There's a lot there. There's no ads, there's no cookies, there's no, it's just a place for us to look things up that we've written already and for you to look things up too. And we'll show you about doing some of those. But books, magazines, newspaper articles, years of newspaper and magazine articles, they add up, and we loved finding out all that we found out, and a lot of it we found out by talking to other gardeners and getting in and out of other people's gardens. This is your chance to do that, talk to other gardeners. Free for All Fridays. The link will always be there on our Fridays page, and all you got to do is come on and join us on Friday afternoon. So what questions are there, Steve? Anything coming?
We have a hand up from Nancy.
Okay, go Nancy.
Hi. So this is in regards to the grafted lilac tree you were just talking about.
Uh-huh.
So I got somebody who has a huge lilac and it's not really blooming, just a couple here and there. And then what I found out was that the original lilac like died back or something. And now they've got all these huge branches and I can see the original trunk in the middle. So then I'm wondering, is that all those branches coming up maybe are from the original rootstock?
I don't know that they do. I don't know that they do lilacs the same way now as they did once upon a time, but they would graft lilac to privet stock, understock. So they take a desirable lilac and graft it to privet understock. And if the top, the scion, the part that was the lilac, had a problem and died back, the privet would come up, and sometimes the privet would come up and sucker all by itself. So you might have something quite different now than what you had before. If it's not blooming well, I would say the chances are good that you have something different. I've had people tell me that their lilac changed color and the flowers got really small, and that's the privet flower. It's smaller, it's white. They're in the same family, so they can graft them together. Yeah, so I think probably you have a reversion that you don't want to keep.
Okay, because it's not a privet. It looks like a lilac flower, but it's like one.
Yeah.
And the shrub is huge.
Right?
like 10 feet tall, 8 feet wide. So,
Well, lilacs are big. I mean, they're two-story plants. I reduced our lilacs from about 15 feet to over a couple of years pruning to rejuvenate them. And in most botanical gardens, they keep them smaller so that the flowers and the smell are down near people's faces. But if you let them go, they get really big. They are large plants. But it sounds like yours might have been grafted. Some desirable dark purple or double lilac or one of those things was grafted onto just plain old lilac understock, and you've lost it.
wow. So just give it, like, trim it and give it another year or so. And if it doesn't get any better, just get rid of it.
I don't even give them a year when they already didn't bloom well and the flowers don't look right to me and it's too big. I go, okay, we're out of here. I've yanked them out before. It's not easy. Steve and I nearly divorced over the first lilac that I asked him to take out. He was digging for quite a while. Okay, let's
Okay,
move on.
thank you.
Judith also has a hand up.
Go, Judith.
Hi.
Go.
Actually, my friend Claudia.
So it's a question about Japanese maples that are having trouble here in the Boston area with losing leaves and branches. And I've seen this on 4 Japanese maples. I looked it up online and they said there's I don't know if it's a fungus or bacteria. My next door neighbor had an arborist come over and he said, you need to fertilize it, water it, and mulch, don't put grass underneath it. But I'm wondering what's going on because it's really alarming.
I think that the change in the winter weather has a lot to do with this. On our website, we have an article that we wrote about Japanese maples getting dieback. Generally, the dieback happens. They wake up in the spring with dead tips, and then long about the middle of summer, a branch will die back, will just wilt and die back. And that's from cambium damage from the winter time. The side of the trunk that's exposed to the warm weather in the afternoon in the winter warms up, it's thin bark. The cambium reabsorbs the water that it hardened off in the fall, reabsorbs the water, starts photosynthesizing right below the bark, and then boom, the sun goes down. The temperature drops 35 degrees and the cambium cells explode. So you get cambium damage underneath, and that progresses over the years so that there's so much damage that come the hot weather in the summer, the plant cannot, its vascular system can't bring enough water up to the leaves and it wilts and dies. And that's probably what's going on. You'll probably find cracks in the bark on the trunks of these trees that are in trouble. The cracks may be on the branches that are in trouble, especially if they're on the top and exposed in the summertime, in the wintertime. But the cracks might also be on the trunk. If you take a look at the pictures on our website, if you just look on, if you search Japanese maple winter, the article will come up, and we've got little illustrations and photographs and graphics there to look at. But I doubt, I have not heard of any diseases that are coming through for Japanese maples, but they are very susceptible to that problem. And we've certainly had winters that do not fit the criteria for a Japanese maple. They are understory trees. They evolved to live in mild, moderated temperatures, and we put them in a courtyard facing the sun. And now that the weather has started changing, we had, like last year, it was warm until December 8th or so, and then boom, it was very cold. They didn't get a chance to harden off well. So I would look at that. Send us some pictures of the trees, especially the trunk and the bark below the branch, and we can tell you for sure whether that's what we're looking at.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Steve, I forgot to ask whether you are going to watch for Peter and Cheryl too.
I am. I'm trying to.
You're watching. Okay. All right.
Yep.
When Alice.
This.
All right. Who's written this down? When Alice the algae met Frank the fungus, they started liking each other. That's what a lichen is. It's an Alice, an algae, and Frank the fungus. I love it. People have such great ways to remember things. I also have, I'm putting into chat for those who are here to hear. Peter
I put in a link for about frosted Japanese maples, but they may not be the article you were talking about.
Okay. I can't look at that right now, because if I look at that,
Yep.
I won't look at the screen. I just put into chat the link for the list of ferns that Pierre Benrup is going to be talking about, except for one. I think he's added another one. Overnight, he added another one. And if you wanted to, you could download that to take your notes on it. Okay, what else, Steve?
Cheryl's here. Hang on.
Cheryl is here, you say?
Yes, they are.
All right, nice to see you guys. Good. I for sure want to get to our mystery plant then, because they can probably help us with that. So we're taking questions from people, and Steve has been looking in chat to see what's going on. I can see one question that's just sitting there about New Guinea impatiens among the decimated creeping Jenny that we showed a picture before we got started of the sawflies, wiped all the leaves off of her creeping Jenny. The sawfly eats Lysimachia. This is a Lysimachia sawfly. It doesn't eat other plants. Most pests are that way. It might seem like something wipes through and eats everything, and there are some universal eaters, some very Catholic taste insects like Japanese beetle and plant bug that can eat, and black vine weevil that can eat a lot of different plants, but most are quite specific to a plant or a related group of plants. And New Guinea impatiens and Lysimachia are about as far apart as a lion and a lizard. They're not going to share pests, so it would be safe to plant something different there. Is the sawfly completely gone for this year? I think there's just one generation of that Lysimachia sawfly, but I haven't looked that up yet. I'm afraid I saw your note, your pictures a little bit on the late side. So I didn't go looking at our foxtail lilies blooming. And we'll go past there. Yep, it's butterfly season in our yard. We're looking at pictures here. We just get thrilled with some things that get eaten in our yard. This is our pearly everlasting. Has a good crop of the American lady butterflies. They flew back in from however far south they had to go to overwinter as a chrysalis, and they come back in and laid their eggs. The tiger swallowtail was nectaring on the phlomis the other day, and we caught a number of wonderful pictures of it. It's just wonderful to see these things out there. Sonia found a caterpillar that we guessed was a red spotted purple, which is what this one is. It looks a little purpler than it is, she tells me, because of the cup that she put around it to keep it calm while she walked it outside. And that a beautiful butterfly. This we just found the other day, and I'm dancing a little jig. This is, thank you very much. I think it was Tanya who helped me identify this weed. I said, what is this weed? I call it sticky weed, and I should find out what it really is. This is Pennsylvania pellitory. And as it turns out, Pennsylvania pellitory is in the same family as stinging nettle. They're a Acacia family, but it doesn't sting. And when I went to pull some out, because it's a weed, it's a native annual plant that, you know, can be kind of weedy. I went to pull some out and I looked and went, oh, wait. What? And I didn't know what pellitory was, what family it's in. That is a red admiral butterfly caterpillar. And so I took the leaf over and put it back to some of the still rooted Pennsylvania pellitory, and we will now welcome it in as a weed. It's just an annual. It's not going to be a bad weed to have around. We love butterflies and caterpillars. That's what we garden for to a great extent. These are the black swallowtails. We haven't even seen a black swallowtail adult, and yet we've got the larvae on this is on fennel. We grow dill in our garden for it. And we keep trying other things. This is Zizia. I can't think what Zizia is called, Golden Alexanders maybe. Zizia is in the carrot family, and we're trying different perennials in the carrot family to see if we can get more of the black swallowtail caterpillars onto perennials rather than waiting for the dill to seed itself around. Just want to clean up the bitter onions problem that Therese had. She said, why would my onions be bitter when we were talking about vegetables last Saturday? And bitter in plants generally is a reaction to stress. If you stress a plant, it starts loading itself up with tannins to make it itself less tasty to whatever insect is bothering it. And bitter onions indeed are related to drought stress or compacted root stress. So there's something that happened to those onions that they're making you pay for by being bitter. So just take it for what it is and say, next time I'm going to grow my onions in a nicer bed. What other questions are there, Steve?
There's a question about ferns that will wait till Pierre comes on.
Okay.
And then somebody else found a black swallowtail on their golden Alexander. And other than that.
Oh, really?
Is it? No. And Barb asking, is it safe to plant New Guinea impatiens amongst my
Yeah, we took that one because I saw it already.
You did? Oh.
Well, you're
Okay.
welcome. And Cheryl and Pierre are co-hosts now. You made them co-hosts. So
I can't make them co-hosts. Maybe you can,
Oh, okay. Well then, let's see. Are they under Cheryl or are they under Pierre?
Cheryl.
No,
Okay.
no, we're here. We're here.
Yes, I know.
But we want to make you co-host so that you stay at the top of the list here. And you're not listed as
Thank you.
Cheryl. So you must be listed as Pierre.
No,
I don't see him.
Cheryl Benerup under C,
I am looking right now. Tell me what
just
other,
above Deb Armstrong's name on my list.
She's right next to you two on my screen.
I have Carol. Oh, there she is. Now she's there. Okay, more. Make a co-host. Okay, I've requested that you make co-host. You have to say, I think you have to accept it, but there you go.
They are now the co-host.
Okay. So I did not put this Joe Pie in that garden, did not put that there, and it is huge. It masqueraded as, I don't know, turtle head or cup plant. It managed to get in there. Don't you love it? And it's telling us it belongs there. Time to cut back, and I mean, everything is growing like weeds right now. Our neighbor Tina put up a bigger obelisk out of painted sticks for her clematis because she realized that one that she had, it was getting way over the top of it. And I've just gotten done, well, mostly gotten done thinning out the dayflower. This is a native annual plant, little blue flowers on it. The pollinators love it. And I use it as a ground cover. It's a mulch, it's a living mulch. It germinates like crazy. And right about now, I go through and I just pull it all out around the base of the trees, the shrubs, and the perennials that are in there. It's drying out on the driveway. I'll use it as mulch elsewhere. And I've been thinning the phlox. You grow a tall phlox like this, you're asking for mildew. So I've thinned it out. I could have thinned it out earlier, but I'm not always on top of things. I took all those stems out right at ground level, and now it looks like that. And working on cutting things back too in the background here. Steve and I were walking around looking at how things were working out here in the garden. This is Amsonia, Blue Star. It was in bloom a week, 10 days ago. Now it's just about done. And for me, that means it's time to whack the top off of the Amsonia. You may be able to tell that it's growing up above where the flowers were. It'll bury its flowers and seed pods in the plant itself. And I have a lot of open area that I'm asking butterfly bush and foxtail lily and other things to fill. I don't want a zillion seedlings yet of the Amsonia. So I'm going to cut it back to just below where the flowers were. That'll cut maybe half of it off. But I will have less seed at the end of the year and less seedlings coming up. And while we were walking back there to take a look at that and talk about doing that, I looked in at what should be our next wave of color. Right now, the penstemon are the big wave of color and the hummingbirds all over them. And we should have purple coneflower, but our groundhog has pretty much munched all the purple coneflower. So the next wave of color will be coming from swamp milkweed. And as I looked in at the swamp milkweed, I saw something that made me think, wow. And I wanted to ask Cheryl about it. Cheryl, have you ever seen Asclepias incarnata do this? It's just one plant, but something has definitely happened to that. Look at the black stem. Cheryl Benerup, who is with her husband Pierre Benerup, is also a horticulturalist with a degree in horticulturalist, and she spent years being the troubleshooter at one of the biggest perennial nurseries in the country. So I thought, if anybody has seen it happen, have you seen it happen?
Drying out as it's going out.
Yeah, it's drying out, and look at those black streaks on the stem.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's right in there with all of the rest of these. It is right here. And I can't figure what happened to that one. I don't mind thinning some of them out, and I'm just going to yank it out of there because the ironweed comes up in here for later. But I thought maybe if you'd seen it. Yeah.
No, I haven't. But Pierre wanted to say something.
Yeah, it seems to be some sort of a fungus.
Yeah.
Yeah, my solution for fungus problems, fungus spores typically overwinter in the ground. And if you have a problem with things that have fungus, mildew being one example, mulch with something inorganic, such as pea gravel or marble chips or something like that. The spores overwinter and splash up onto the stems and work their way up, and that's a possibility. Unfortunately, fungus problems are, ancient, and they've survived millions of years because they're so invulnerable. There is no effective fungicide to cure them, but you can prevent them by using a mulch to prevent them popping back up onto the stems. And it has to be an inorganic mulch, like gravel or something like that. The other thing about it is that you need to remove all of the dead foliage in the fall, because you just, by leaving it there, you're counteracting the benefit of the stone.
But
So-
I suspect that since the one is infected, but the others are looking good, it
Yeah,
might
that's-
make sense to take out the one.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that one out, and therein lies the rub, in that we're growing this as our native area. And we're asking these plants to take care of themselves, so we'll just have to see. I always like to give a name to things. Look at our penstemon seedlings. It's time to thin out the penstemon seedlings. I have no
Janet?
idea how the verbena hostata got there. Hey, Stephen, yeah.
We're getting close to the time you said we have to get going, but there's a question from Barb Sturts that I think we need to address quickly.
Okay, go.
in
Go,
chat.
Barb.
Our
What?
Japanese maple does have considerable cambium damage on its south side, getting worse each year. I do put a 3-foot top of a Christmas tree on its south side each winter. Davy Tree is recommending painting it with phosphate liquid humate, HUMATE, at a cost of roughly $140. Does this seem reasonable?
You can't fix that problem, fix the damage that's already there. I mean, you just can't. You can prevent other damage, and if shading it isn't doing it, I can't see that a physical barrier right on the trunk is going to make much difference either. If you were in a regulation Japanese garden, you'd be wrapping rice paper around there and tying it up to protect it. But I wouldn't spend that much money on a tree it's essentially in the wrong place. Maybe grow a little, what's that peach? Pierre, Cheryl, you would know it. It's a bonfire peach, is it, with the dark leaves? And it's a little dwarf peach. It's a great thing. Look at this. Look what this hydrangea did. You move it.
Oh, no.
Well, but it came right back up. It said,
Yes.
"Oh, my son moved it out of the bed full of thistle." I said, "Well, you can't save it unless you take all the thistle out of the roots." And he took all the thistle out of the roots and moved it. And 2 days later, it's standing up. Well, but a couple.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to get going to introduce Pierre, like you said, at 7:25.
Okay, so here
All
we go.
right. And then there's questions in the chat that we'll try to take a look at anyway.
Yeah, we can come back to those questions as we have time, and as long as they're in chat, there's something that we can email back to you, and other people in chat can see it. Inorganic mulches, while we're doing this, someone wanted Pierre to repeat the inorganic mulches, inorganic stones, marble chips, turkey grit, plastic.
Well, not plastic, please.
Sorry, I couldn't help it. Okay, this is our Ferny Free4All Friday. We're going to get some frondly advice from a 3rd-generation perennial grower. This is our Garden A to Z Free4All Friday, but we're talking today about ferns in the garden. And as Pierre puts it, with fronds like these, who needs anemones? That's really, really, really bad. Pierre Benrup is going to be our presenter. I hope that we can do more of these things. Pierre asked us, could he do something on ferns, because he had fun doing talk with us earlier. Pierre has recently retired from owning one of the largest perennial nurseries in the world, Sunny Border Nursery. This is when we were working with him one day, and one big snowstorm they had in Connecticut there. And he's been there all his life. His father started the nursery. His grandfather was on the farm that became the nursery. And they grew perennials like nobody else grew perennials, including impressing most of the world with being able to grow perennials in pots rather than sending them out bare root. One of the largest wholesale growers in the country, and that makes him one of the largest in the world. And he keeps telling us he's retired, but every weekend during the growing season, he's off potting perennials, selling them, and talking to people at the farmer's market. And I think what he likes to do is talk to people at the farmer's market, really. and he is known everywhere in the green industry, as it's called. He's been in nursery management and grower talks in the American Horticultural Society's American Gardener magazine. You don't have to look to see his impact on the perennial industry. They wrote he's got more than 40 varieties of plants that he introduced. And he helped start the Perennial Plant Association so that students and growers could share their information like we're sharing information on our Free4All Fridays. But he's been around a long time. He knows everybody. Everybody knows him. He's well respected, and he still calls himself a plant nerd. He says his own garden. This was his garden that he retired from. They're now in a condo and got smaller places, but he's still got the greenhouses. And he says it's kind of insane, his collection. And he asked us. So we're also welcoming Cheryl, who's I would have to go on for another 5 minutes about Cheryl's horticultural accomplishments. We'll just take her as you can be Vanna White today for Pierre, Cheryl, okay? Just an ordinary gardener with deer problems, for instance, who likes ferns because maybe they don't get eaten so much by deer. And we'll go on from there. So Pierre, you can take it away. Tell us where we want to start.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. We're starting in our dining room, but we're going to move outside because I have a selection of ferns which I took.
Well, we need to make sure, are we on a screen that you can even see?
I will stop my share. If you tell me which plant you're going to be, I'll just pause my share at that plant.
We will start there with the maidenhair fern. I also have some that I'll show you right in front.
Okay, I'm going to stop share and go right ahead. And your screen now will be, and I have to pin you. How do I pin? Sure.
Here.
Hang on, I just have to pin you. Spotlight.
Ah,
There we go. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
we are now moving outside in front
I
of
love
our
it.
garden.
I love it. A real garden.
Well,
Whoops, you might be able to.
so I'm going to do
You may.
alphabetical order.
Hang on 1 second.
What's that?
Hang on. You're breaking up. I think you stepped a little too far away from your internet.
Uh-oh.
Might have to stay on the steps.
Okay. You take it back inside.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about some ferns. Can you see me all right?
Sit down.
Yep. Wait, you're there now. Yep.
All right.
Just sit down and see if they can still catch you.
I am going to sit down on our front stoop.
And can they see?
Can you see
pumpkin
us?
coming
You're
outside?
looking clear, and Pumpkin is escaping behind you.
There we go. Okay. So before I discuss any ferns, there are some aspects of ferns which I find interesting, which can be very much overlooked. One of the ones that I'm considering is the fact that ferns are edible, some of them. Actually, none of them are poisonous. Some are not as tasty as others. Well, actually, to be true, none of them.
Uh-oh.
Spring fiddleheads that can be eaten. They're usually best eaten fresh when the fiddleheads are maybe 4 to 6 inches out of the ground. And what you want to do is cook them in olive oil, butter, and braise them in whatever. And quite frankly, the best part of them is not the taste of the fiddleheads themselves, but the butter and the salt and pepper or whatever. So they also are not terribly nutritious, and that's one reason why they're not deer. Well, they're deer resistant because deer realize that they don't have any nutrition, so you don't have to worry about deer. However, the other thing, of course, is that, and this is something I did a long time ago, back in the 90s, when I was running a fairly good-sized nursery, I promoted a couple of ferns that are native, the Dryopteris clintoniana and Dryopteris bushiana. Now, these are two native ferns that most people don't know. but their common name is the bush fern and the Clinton fern. So I promoted these two ferns with the idea that you could create a political garden. You know, if you want to politicize your garden, plant the Clinton fern and plant the bush fern. Well, of course, neither one are named for those two presidential people, but you know, it was a good idea. I kind of fell short when I described the Clinton fern as being highly promiscuous. I got criticized in the Philadelphia Inquirer for my my lack of political. What's the word we use? Anyway, that was not a good thing to do.
Diplomacy.
I was not, whatever.
Politically improper.
I was politically improper.
Incorrect.
I was politically, that's it. I was politically incorrect. Anyway, I was sitting here in front of our condo, and I'm going to show you, and we're doing this in alphabetical order by botanic name, for no other reason that the common names kind of get, well, kind of get screwed up.
See them.
No, so this is, can we see that there?
Yes, we can. Named her fern.
That is the Adiantum pedatum. I love that name. That is our native maidenhair fern. It is, without question, I think the prettiest of all our native ferns. It has you know, this horseshoe kind of frond, and it's really very, very, very nice. Likes moist woodland soil. Doesn't really like to be in a drought area, but it's just a perfectly beautiful fern.
I would love to have a big planting of that, and I've never been able to get it to just spread. My
Yeah,
that did, but maybe not enough moisture, or it's not enough organic matter or something, because it's so pretty.
yeah, and I know that you have. I know that you have some slides of it, but this is a real plant. You know, this is what you're looking at. Let me move along to, you know, again in the botanic alphabet. We're going to move around to.
No, just sit there.
Oh, Cheryl is bringing the ferns to me. I have them all set out there. There we go. This is the Japanese painted fern.
That's good. Can
Is
you
that,
see it? Or-
And you introduced pictum to the market, I understand. I didn't realize that.
No, I'm not sure I did. I know that I was one of the first people that actually supplied it.
And Branford
Um,
Beauty.
And there are a couple of hybrids of that, which were done locally by a really great botanist, also a dentist, that crossed it with our native lady fern and came up two different varieties, Branford Beauty and Branford Rambler. And those are crosses between our native lady fern and the Japanese painted fern. One other interesting thing about this fern, it was found back in the 30s in Japan, and that was a time when Japan was allied with Germany in the so-called Axis group, and the name was originally named for Goering, so it was called Atherium goeringiana.
It was
And
named,
after the Second World War, that was changed rather rapidly to Atherium.
I never realized it was named for the one of the.
Well, that name didn't last too long. Okay. Anyway, so
I'm going to share screen for just a minute again and
go ahead.
show you some of those pictures that that you picked out that are of a different. Let's see. Okay, topics.
Oh, that's good.
And go to Ethereum. So that's lady fern, right? It's taller than the
Yeah, and I have a picture of. Okay, that's late. Well, that's a painted fern there. Yeah, and that's a lady fern.
so that was crossed with something to give us this with all of these colors in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am surprised that, I mean, look at the color on those what would you call this, the sticks that are rachis? What are they?
Oh, I don't know. There are all sorts of specific botanic terms that I once knew that refer to ferns and their various parts. I forgot all that stuff. So, sorry about that.
I'm glad to hear somebody else does. Okay, so go ahead. Go ahead with your real life plants. They're much nicer.
This is a lady fern. All right. Well, I have a picture of a lady fern there. The Japanese lady fern and the American lady fern are essentially the same, but the Japanese lady fern tends to be a little bit shorter. Okay, and I think that's a Japanese lady fern there, not the American fern. The American one is beautiful, by the way, and it is, I think the word is circumpolar. The Assyrium or lady fern group is found in all the northern hemisphere. Anyway, onwards.
I know the painted fern is kind of a clump former. Is the lady fern also a clump former, or does it run?
Yes, both are they're clump formers. Easy to divide. Some ferns are not. Some ferns are like form this really knotty central, again lacking the botanic term, but they're very hard to define.
Oh, we froze again here.
Very easy to find. This is a picture of our native hay-scented fern.
I
And
think it might be too close.
I don't know, maybe you can hold it better than me.
Yeah,
Okay.
both
The
of them.
hay-scented fern,
Is it really hay?
that's Densitatia punctiloba. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. It is one of the few ferns that will not only survive in full sunlight, but it can be cut back like hay and it will resprout. Most ferns, if you cut them back, will not resprout until the next year, if in fact they live at all. But this one will. It is, it has rhizomes. It will wander all over under the ground. It's not, well, let's say I wouldn't call it invasive, but it is rather aggressive. Okay.
It's not
All right.
tame.
We're going to go into the dry. Go ahead.
It's not
Got
tame.
questions or whatever?
I've seen it, I think we saw it at the Arnold Arboretum in the rock, in a rock wall, and it was just everywhere. No, it was at the Case Estates, when that was associated with the Arnold. I love it. I think it has its place, but it might not be in everybody's garden.
Well, it is well, true. It's not a fern. It's a fern you want to use someplace where you don't want to do a lot of maintenance. It'll take over an area, but it's absolutely a gorgeous fern. But it just will. It'll take over an area, and it needs to be watched. It can be a little bit aggressive, but I love the fern anyway. It's very delicate.
So that leads us
Yeah.
to the question that someone put into chat before we got started here. She says she has a lot of wild woodland ferns that keep infiltrating her shade garden. Is there any advice on how to beat it back? And she thinks that the digging is not really, is near impossible because of the root system. So it's a runner.
Well, okay. This fern has very superficial, and they call it.
Talking about this
No, we're
fern?
still talking about that.
Okay, the hay.
A very superficial root system. It has little tiny rhizomes that go all over the place. It doesn't ever go any deeper than 2 or 3 inches into the ground. Very easy to get rid of. You just take a rake and rake it up and it'll go away. What she may be talking about is the sensitive fern Onoclea sensibilis, and that has huge rhizomes under the ground and it gets all over the place and it's very difficult to get rid of. But the hay-scented fern is really a very easy fern to control, but it is, aggressive, which of course is what some people want.
When we moved into this house, we had ostrich fern everywhere. And
That will be aggressive too.
rhizome.
By the way,
Yeah, my neighbor came over while I was beating it back because I didn't want all ostrich fern. And he said, that fern's been there. He said that fern's been there for 40 years. And I said, it's never met me before. And you keep at it, you can get it, but it's a trial.
Well, okay. Ostrich fern, by the way, is probably the best fern to eat. The fiddleheads are, rather large. Some you can eat almost any of them, but some of the fiddleheads on ferns are extremely tiny and it take hours to harvest enough to have an edible amount. But ostrich ferns are very prolific, and you can get a lot of fiddleheads out of them. You have to get them early in the spring, and they last about 2 or 3 days, and after that they grow so fast you can't eat them. And of course, you have to be very much on time to get them. I would suggest, if you like harvesting early crops that are native, that you spend more time looking for ramps, which are our wild garlic chives. But anyway, that's another point. Okay, we're going to look at our native wood fern. This is Dryopteris marginalis. Can you see it there?
I love that fern.
Yeah, it has spore. I don't know whether you can see them, but it has spores on the back of the whatever, and they're lined up in 2 rows on every
Go down.
one of
Go
okay,
down,
on every
Go
one
down.
of the
go down.
yeah, there we go. Okay. Anyway,
So on the back side.
yeah. Anyway, that is probably our most common wood fern, and it's a very nice fern, by the way.
Does it stay nearly evergreen for you, like way late into the winter before it?
Yes, well, it does, but the fronds do die back and new fronds do come up. I think that's a better picture of the
Well,
spores.
they're starting to turn brown,
Yeah.
where the others are still green.
Okay. And the next one is its cousin.
Well, just,
Okay. The next one is its cousin, which we can have, I guess.
well, they might have pictures.
You may
Peter,
have
that they
pictures of
can-
that. I'm not sure, but evergreen wood fern, or marginal shield fern, is another word for that. And it's identified at this time of year because of the spores that are in a double file on the back of its fronds. Anyway, one of my favorite ferns is, and I don't know whether I'm showing you a good
Oh,
picture of this.
Oh, is that beautiful? That's gorgeous. Is that an autumn?
That is an autumn fern, Dryopteris erythrosorum. This is a variety called Brilliance, and it starts this way, and then it turns more green during the summer, and then it turns a beautiful bronze color all fall. Unfortunately, it is not really totally evergreen, but it's just a gorgeous fern. Not native. I'm not sure where. I think it's an Asian fern, possibly Chinese or Japanese, but it is one of the prettiest of all the ferns. Easy to grow, and
I think we do have a couple of pictures of that one that we should probably show people, because I
yeah, you can do
think
that. All right, why don't you do that? All
I
right.
I think that in looking for this,
Okay, do we lose you? I don't know.
no, I think we're still in the same place. Let's see, where's the autumn fern? Here, autumn fern, there we go.
Okay.
Because in looking for it, I found that it sells out. So most places that were offering it don't have it, like
Oh, they're showing the pictures.
Fancy Franz Nursery that you recommend as one of the places to get just about anything. They were sold out. Beautiful pictures of it, but sold out. White Flower Farm said that they have it. They have Brilliance, but look at those colors.
We should be letting them show pictures in between.
Well, we'll go. We'll go back and forth. It's no problem at all with stopping the share and then going back to you. There you go.
Oh, are we back? Are we back?
Yes, we are back. What do you got there?
Well, this is the very closely related to the evergreen wood fern is the Dryopteris
Carthusiana.
the what's the common name? The
I'll see if it shows.
yeah.
You have Japanese red
That's wrong.
red shield
Yeah,
fern.
no,
No,
that's
that's
wrong.
the autumn
Anyway,
fern.
it's a very closely related, also quite common, and
Toothed wood
it
fern.
is
Wood fern or spinulose.
spinulose. Thank you. You got it. That's a spinulose wood fern. Very similar.
What does
And frankly,
spinulose?
I'm not going to try to tell.
Oh, okay.
I won't try to tell you what the difference is because I'm not quite sure myself. Anyway, all right. What's next up there?
Oh,
You have pictures of it yourself?
I think we do for the next one. Hang on. Okay, so all these hostas that you introduced too, your nursery got people going, that's for sure. So we had the toothed wood fern, then autumn fern, marginal shield fern. Oh, we're up to ostrich fern, it looks like.
There we go, ostrich fern.
I,
This is very aggressive fern, but it's edible, okay? As I said earlier, not terribly nutritious, but it is a very, very prolific fern. And you have some nice pictures of it.
it's grown right over the top of all the hellebores that were supposed to be in this part of the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, it'll take over the world if you let it.
Yeah.
But it's a very pretty fern.
yeah. They're 5 feet tall this year here in some
Oh,
places.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
They can get tall.
Yeah.
It has one unfortunate characteristic. I'm going to see what I can find one. There's a little insect that makes, can you see this? It makes a little nest out of the tip of the of the frond.
Oh, is that what's going on? I wondered why they do that sometimes.
and I don't know, it
You
disfigures
don't
it.
like, well, you don't like to put chemicals on.
No, we don't use any chemicals, but I don't think any chemical. The thing isn't eating it; it's just using it as a nest, and for
I have my mission.
basically,
I have my mission. I'll have to figure out what that is.
it's
You know
a
what?
cocoon. If you open it up, you'll see this little,
Caterpillar.
caterpillar or whatever inside there.
My beef with ostrich fern is that in the heat of the summer, you just get into August and it'll just go down.
It does want to be wet in the summer. It needs moisture. If you get any kind of a drought condition, it will go summer dormant. Comes right back, and quite frankly, you should probably be happy that it does go dormant. Otherwise, it will take over the world. But anyway, it is a very pretty fern. Okay. Cheryl has been very accommodating. She is.
Put it back on you.
Cheryl is
You guys are
taking plants up and down and back and forth so that whatever.
sensitive
So we're down
fern.
to,
Sensitive fern is next on the list.
yeah, you have a picture of that. I don't like that fern. A personal prejudice, I would have to say, because it can take over your garden, and it is much more difficult to get out of there once you got it in there. They have a very fat rhizomes that crawl all over the place and pop up wherever you don't want to see it.
So where would you use it then? Because you put it on the list. So is it watch out for?
Yeah, if you have they like a swampy area. They don't like to be totally dry. It's a pretty fern, but I guess I'm a fern bigot. I don't like that fern. So
Why is it called sensitive?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
I wondered if it's because it goes down early when it's getting cold in the fall or something.
Well, yeah. Well, let's move on to osmunda. Osmunda, there are 3 basic native ferns that are osmundas. I'm showing you here. Well, you have pictures of it there, and I'm glad you do, because they are not putting out their spore thing yet.
Sensitive fern is named for its sensitivity to frost.
Oh,
It is because it goes
there
down.
we go.
They will quickly wither when freezing temperatures arrive in the fall.
There we go. It quickly withers when it freezes.
Hire
Good.
that lady. We need that
Good.
fact.
That's good. I like that.
Makes sense. In our temperate zone, that makes sense.
Now you have a nice picture of
Does cinnamon fern run like the others that live in the
the
west?
spore
No. Stick.
stick, or there's a word for that.
Fertile frond.
In fertile frond. There we go. Good.
Fertile
This is the fern before it spores out, and I think you can see. Can you see the one we have here?
right.
There we go. That's a good word. I forgot that word. Okay, you see that? Put it onto the one I'm showing you here.
Okay.
It is a beautiful fern. it's a bit aggressive, but it needs to be in a moist area. Typically around here, you'll find it growing near ponds or streams, or in a wetland area, and it's absolutely magnificent, especially when the spore, again, the word I forgot, when that comes up. But it's a beautiful fern, closely related to two other ferns, also botanically osmundas. The other one is the interrupted fern, which we have some samples of, and then we'll get that for you in a second. And then there's the whatever.
Here we go. Oh, we had live examples of the interrupted fern.
You
Darn.
have examples of that?
No, I couldn't find any really good pictures to show them.
Oh, good, because I have some good pictures right here. There's two pictures of the interrupted fern. And if you look carefully, you'll see that the spores interrupt the stems right in the middle. And those are spores there. You see that? Can you see that?
Oh, they do it. Okay.
All right.
I'm moving it too much, I think.
I don't know, whatever. And there's another one. You see all the spores there. Unfortunately, the cinnamon fern has not yet put out its spore stems.
Point again to.
They're right
Yeah,
there. You see?
you would think there's something wrong with the leaves there or
No,
something.
that's the spores that are forming there. The other one, which is again circumpolar, which occurs all over the northern hemisphere, is the royal fern, and I don't have any samples of that.
We did talk about the royal fern though as being the place where, in Michigan anyway, if there's royal fern growing in the woods where you're walking, then watch out for the Mississauga rattlers too, because it's a swampy area and they'll be there. It's a shy rattlesnake and generally run away, but I mean, you want to be careful about that.
Oh, good. Well, good to know, because I'm terrified of snakes. Okay. All right. I don't know, what do we have coming next here?
I think we have whoops, I have to go back. Uh-oh. Hang on a second, I have to get back to where you are before I can. There we go.
Oh, here's one of my favorite ferns. Polystium polyblepharum. Now that's a mouthful. This is a gorgeous fern. There we go. Can you see that? Oh,
Let's go back to you. There we go.
Okay. I
I love that you're saying these names too. I was saying polysticum, but polystichum sounds much better. Oh, that's a gorgeous fern.
Blepharum. It's glossy. It has it's much more chartreuse in color. It has these wonderful stipes that are, they bend, and it's just a lovely fern. Makes a kind of a
Nice base shape.
yeah, a vase shape. It's just a great fern. Now these are rather low. It does get up to maybe 3 feet tall, but it's a great fern. Not invasive at all. It's very hard to divide. It has a solid core of roots, but it's very pretty fern.
The
It's so glossy. Okay.
polystichum that we know that we've planted is the Christmas fern, and it's evergreen. Is this one also evergreen?
Yeah, it is evergreen. But when you say that, the Christmas fern, which I have samples of, by the way, which that is evergreen until the spring, and then the old fronds die back and new fronds come up. So it's you have 12 months of the old fronds, and then you got new fronds coming up the next year. So, but yes, it does give you color all year round. It's true, by the way, in general, of the hardy Polystichum genus, which, and there are many tropical forms as well. Okay, so where are we going here?
So we have Polystichum acrosticoides. I love that name.
Yeah.
Christmas fern up on the screen, and you said you've got some there.
Yeah, I have some here. I took these. They weren't the best samples, but I took them because they were showing their spores. Now, can you show those spores? Can you see them? I don't know.
Oh my gosh, there's lots of them. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
I've never noticed that on Christmas fern before.
Yeah, that's the way they spore. The back of their fronds have cinnamon colored spores, and it's it's quite interesting.
I like seeing them in the woods, here where they're growing right in the bowl of a tree, and then the tree falls down and raises up all the soil, and the Christmas fern stays up there growing on top of a fallen over tree. I think.
Yeah.
And over rocks, and they're all over in the New England area, off in the woodland area. And it's so nice to see them.
I thought they liked moisture, but in New England, I think I've seen them growing in dry, rocky areas.
Right,
Yeah,
because
they're
the
pretty good.
moisture comes down over and it just enough to keep them.
This is it's our most common fern, along with the evergreen wood fern, and they often grow close together. The evergreen wood fern is actually more likely to grow in a rocky outcropping. The Christmas fern will often grow just below a rocky outcropping. I'm not sure why.
And
There's
it's
one more fern down there which I
Well,
would
hold
want to
this,
show.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'll find it because I think
it's a clump former too, right?
okay, where
Is it is your Christmas fern a clump former? And is it one of the ones that's hard to divide also?
Here, they'd like to know if it's hard to divide. It
Yeah.
is a clump former.
yeah, it's fairly hard to divide. Oh, there was one
He's
more.
thinking that he had another. Meanwhile, you can see our front yard, and here's Pumpkin up checking out the Christmas fern.
There's not much nutritional value, Pumpkin. You don't need to chew on that one.
Oh, man.
She's gonna
What-
give.
what the
Oh,
two-
she's it must smell good. You know, it's a very thick fern, the Christmas fern. It's stiff. It's not soft like some other ferns are. So she's picked
Yeah.
a rubber chin on.
That Polystichum
Blepharum?
yes, the one that Pierre just, yeah, that's a nice kind of a soft, the ostrich fern is very soft.
I think I'm going to try some of that Polystichum blepharum. It wasn't on the list when we started out, so I don't have any pictures. Are you getting more plants? You guys are crazy.
Got one in the trunk of my car. I brought these over from our little whatever. This is a
Here,
Japanese
come on.
wood fern, and it's called Deparia.
Oh,
And-
Deparia, okay.
And it's a lovely fern that nobody knows, and I like it a lot.
That looks like it's got soft fronds, does it?
Yeah, it's soft and it's again
me
it's sort
bring
of
it down.
chartreusey in color. Can you see it?
Yeah. It's called.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a glade fern. That's very pretty. That's low. Is it going to stay? Is that one of the lower ferns then?
Yeah, I think it gets a little taller than this. This is probably maybe 10 inches tall. It gets probably 15 inches tall. It's very nice. And I think it's Asian. I'm not sure whether it's Japanese or whatever. Almost
Maybe if I go this
Yeah.
way.
most of the ferns I've shown you are native. Obviously, the Japanese painted fern is not, nor is Deparia. I think maybe there's one other fern there that's not native, but almost all of them are native. This is not, but it's just a very pretty fern. There we go. Look at that.
You know, I wonder about all the common names that call them wood ferns. Aren't all ferns from the woods?
No.
Okay.
I'll tell you one funny. There's one native fern here called a woodsia, and you would think that would be a wood fern, but it's named for a guy named Mr. Woods. I never knew him. He probably lived back in the 18th century, and it always grows in full sun.
Oh,
Which-
okay.
And I have never sold it. I have found it growing in the wild, but it grows up on our rocky ridges here. We have a number of rocky ridges, and it grows sort of in crevices and that kind of situation. And it's quite a nice fern, but it isn't a commercial fern. It's not something you'd want to say. It's quite
And the
small.
Hartford fern.
And then we have another one, which is native, called the Hartford fern, which is a climbing fern.
I
Uh,
do. I found a picture of that one.
One thing I can say about the Hartford fern is it does not exist in Hartford any longer, okay? But it is around southern New England and New Jersey. And
So you have a picture of it? Yeah, so she's
I,
got
I
a,
found, I found a picture of it. Let's see. I think it is.
all right,
I think it's here at the end. Whoops. How did I get
that's
that?
right. There, you can see what the deer did to our garden. I saw that passing.
Yeah, that's they definitely have been browsing in that garden, haven't
That
they?
is what a deer does to your garden. There we go. And they only get up about 4.5 feet. Anything above that, you're safe with. But
Okay. I think it was that's funny. Oh, that's right. I just realized I got to hit the letter, Janet. You have to hit the letter. So here's the king, which you liked, and
yeah, I
I
do
found
that
this Go Botany, the Native Plant Trust had these pictures of, it doesn't look like a fern, those look like leaves. They look like, looks like a vine.
It is a vine, and frankly, I would never grow it. There's no particular reason why you would. It's not a very attractive fern, but it's there. It's kind of interesting because you don't think of ferns as being viney. In this case, it is. And I have run into it in the wild occasionally, but it's not a common fern here. And it certainly does no longer exist in Hartford. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I don't have a picture of Dryopteris spicata or the king, or no, cristata, the king, because it is such a lovely fern.
but we do
Yeah,
have,
really.
yeah, we do have Isley Nursery, which is a big wholesale nursery, had a nice picture of it that you could download for a nursery to use. And I found that pretty much Plant Delights, which is a big help for a lot of things. Plant Delights doesn't have it, nobody has it. It has those little fingers at the end of each of the fronds.
Yeah, it's really cute. All right.
Is it big? Let's see.
Oh yeah, it's a tall fern. I mean, when you say tall fern, maybe 3 feet, 3.5. It's not a short fern, but it's really pretty. And I used to have some in our garden before we moved out. Now we don't have much of a garden here. You saw what is our garden. I think we showed them our garden. They have never seen the garden, but it's quite small. But
I
show
don't know.
some of the nice things in our
Well,
garden.
they're looking at,
There, that's,
Yeah,
and yeah, we didn't put in a lot of pictures of your garden, just one of you sitting out there and a little bit of the hedge. Just
yeah,
to-
but it's not the garden where we are.
no, she knows that.
yeah, okay,
We'll show you our garden here at the condo.
I'm gonna stop this share then and let you get back to, there we go. Hydrangeas,
Yes.
are those blue hydrangeas? And are they gonna color? They don't do that for us here very well.
Well, we're hoping.
One tries to do the acid for blue and the lime for pink.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, we have some, oh, well, of course, we have all these ferns lined up out here.
I saw a
And then-
hosta behind one of those ferns. Hostas look so good with ferns.
Yes, they do.
What
Yeah.
else, what else do you plant with ferns?
What else do we, what?
What
Plant
else
with-
do you plant with ferns?
Well, I'm going to show you hostas, of course.
No, what
What?
do you plant with ferns?
Yeah.
Hostas.
Hostas,
Right. Well, I mean, we're not planting ferns here, but this is one of our hostas. I thought you'd like that.
they're gorgeous.
Well, no, I think that's orange marmalade. And then we have this dark heuchera.
Whoops, too dark, can't see it.
It's getting dark here, so we probably can't see it.
No.
Anyway, we should probably end this session.
Let's take some questions.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's time.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, I'm going to take us to just funny pictures in the background.
Yeah, we've never done this before, so it's a little bit difficult.
I found while we were setting up the pictures for your list here, Pierre, that that you've not only introduced a lot of plants, but they have plants named for you. And we found your Pierre's chrysogonum.
Oh,
It-
yeah.
it definitely has a different flower. The petals are bigger and they fit together quite nicely. And your nursery introduced that whole Big Bang series of Coreopsis. Coreopsis Mercury Rising is my favorite plant in the whole world, and I didn't realize it came out of your nursery.
Well, yeah, but from my good friend Daryl Probst, who's the breeder, and we still see Daryl and I talk to Daryl all the time. Yes, that is a great plant, and it reblooms. Unlike most plants, it'll bloom starting about now, and then it continues blooming until sometime after the 4th of July. It goes out of bloom, starts blooming again in late August, September, and blooms till frost. It's a very good plant. It does pay to cut back the original flowers, but not totally necessary. Anyway, any questions?
It's also very vigorous, which is really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Okay, what questions do we have?
Anne is asking about male ferns. Tell us about male ferns.
Okay. There, male fern is native. There are a couple, I think, in the United States, but basically it's a Eurasian fern, and I have grown some, and they're really quite good. But it's the female fern, of course, is the Cerium Felix femina. What is the botanic on the male fern? It's not an Ethereum. At any rate,
I think it's a Dryopteris.
yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I can't give you a lot of information on it. I'm sorry to say. I have grown it.
I think I learned the male fern in that class that I took as leather wood fern, and it had a real strong substance to it. It stood up nicely long into the year and was a clump former. And I think, and the male fern gave us the king, right? Because the king is
it's Dryopteris. Felix Moss, the king, and that's Felix Moss is the name of the male fern. It's good fern. I just didn't have any to show you.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can really tell you about it. It's good fern.
It was tall, 3 feet or so, and a clump former. We had one that lived for a long time in our old garden. I didn't have any real shade to put it in except next to the garage, so it had one little place. That's where it stayed for a long time. I like ferns that kind of stay put a little bit.
We have somebody asking about, are these ferns hardy in Minnesota, zone 4?
Let's see, I think
most of the ferns that I have shown you are hardy to zone 4. We're not in zone 4, we're in zone 6 here. So I can't promise that, but I don't know that any fern that I've shown you is a hardiness risk in a zone 4.
I think the one of the holly ferns, which we listed but didn't show, was only zone 5, but the rest of them I'm pretty sure it went to zone 4. I'm looking right now to see in my encyclopedia if I can look that up. So take another question.
Okay, Mary Ellen's asking, are there any how come that jumped? Any tips on how to grow ferns from saved spores? I have collected and am saving in the refrigerator.
There are several companies in the United States that specialize in spore propagation. I was never one of those companies. We always bought in starters or did divisions. Like ceriums divide up very easily. We could do divisions on that, but there are not many, couple of companies that do spore propagation. We've always done that. I would say you probably would need to do more or less like you do with any kind of a seed. Put it in a good seed mix, separate it as much as you can, and keep it at room temperature and moist, and I think you'll get germination. It may be a little difficult to separate them out, but as I say, I really haven't done that. We always bought in our sporlings. Okay, any other questions?
There's, yeah, Suzanne was asking about royal fern. I can't remember if we went over it.
We didn't do royal fern. We have a couple of good pictures of it elsewhere.
Okay, it's a great fern, and there are some variations on the theme. I grew it. I did not bring samples of it. It is a fern which almost always grows in a moist wetland situation, in a swamp, in the edge of a stream or a lake, and whatever. It is a very nice fern. It is also a fern that grows all the way around the northern hemisphere. But I don't know anything else I can tell you about it. I have grown the thing. There are some forms of it that get 6 feet tall, by the way.
Yeah, if it's in a nice moist area, it will get really tall.
Yeah.
I definitely like it with hostas, but it needs the moisture. I was off grabbing a catalog for the hardiness issue about when Mary Ellen asked about the spores. I remember that part from the class that I took, that I didn't want to have to grow ferns because they become a different organism. The spores swim in water to each other and form like a club moss, like a mossy little thing. And then that matures. It's like a grub matures into a beetle, that matures into a fern. But you have to have the right conditions. You grow them in a terrarium to make that first joining of the spore material together. So it's kind of like human sperm swims to the egg. The spores are not complete. They have to swim to another form and form this other critter, which is amazing to me, but more work than I wanted to do.
All right, anything else?
Zones, most of these ferns are zone 3. So our Minnesota person is, I think, in zone 4 or 5.
Yep. She said the one she bought in Eastern Massachusetts survived last year in Minnesota.
Yep. All the ferns that we listed here are zone 3, all the way down to zone 3. I know that there was one, the holly fern that's not in this catalog I'm looking at, and the holly fern didn't go down into zone 4 safely.
No, I didn't list any holly fern. It's a very nice fern, but I didn't list any. And it probably is a more tropical fern anyway. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, Diane says her garden is living proof of your fern companion recommendations. The former owner 18 years ago planted ferns, hostas, heuchera, and ginger all along the north side of the house. To this day, they live amicably together and crowd out almost all weeds. It's incredible.
I love that. A little applause for that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. By the way, I like that combination. No, that's good.
Yeah. Right. And Carol also said it's not a question. She just wanted to comment that the Chrysogonum Virginianum Pierre is her new favorite ground cover. She found it at a nursery near Lansing, and I'm trying to use it as a living mulch. Thanks! Exclamation point.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a bunch of it. The funny thing about the plant, it was named for me by my friend Alan Bush, who now lives in Louisville, but at the time he was living in, I think, Asheville area, and it has a curious habit, unlike the other members of its genus. It has a flower on it almost all year round. I remember on a warm January finding the thing with a flower on the thing. I mean, it's just a strange plant. It never is in full flower. It's never like covered with flowers like, a fall chrysanthemum or something. There's always some flowers on it. And that's unique with plants. There's just very few plants. I have, when I was at a point, I owned a garden center called Comstock Ferry, and I remember a guy coming in and asked me, what do I have that'll bloom all year round? And I think, I don't think I told him plastic daffodils, but that's what I had in mind. But the fact is, that chrysogomen always seems to have a flower here and there. I don't know why.
That's
All right.
pretty neat.
Yeah. Nancy wonders about soil and shade conditions for the Japanese painted fern. Soil and sun conditions, sorry.
You know,
Well,
I'm surprised at how dry that one will run.
yeah, it's pretty good. I think so. It likes a rich soil. One thing that I didn't mention and probably should mention is that ferns are reputed to require acidic soil, and that's not at all true. Many ferns will grow in alkaline soil. A couple of examples are the maidenhair fern doesn't particularly like acidic soil. We have a native a fern which is what is a little fern that grows in rocks up here. No, okay. I'm sorry, mental block here, but there are a number of ferns that grow in rather alkaline soil. Most of the native ferns, Asplenium, yeah, Asplenium platinorum is a spleenwort. Spleenworts actually prefer alkaline soil and will often be found in limestone ridges, growing in crevices in the limestone.
I've seen mortar and bricks too.
Yeah, that would be the case. There's a curious place in New York when you drive into Manhattan. There is a railroad track that comes into Manhattan, and there's a road that goes beside it, and it's all built with limestone, and there are aspleniums growing up and down all around this place, and it's crazy because I mean nothing grows in Manhattan except weeds, but this thing was growing well there. So I won't say that you should plant your ferns in acidic conditions, but they will endure quite alkaline. Some will endure quite alkaline conditions. Anyway, continue.
When you have a group of people together, like I've got on the screen right now, your Ratsiputz group,
Yeah.
and you go up into the mountains here in the Rockies here, can you actually walk anywhere, or does everybody stop every 3 feet looking at something that's growing?
Good question. I don't. Yeah, well, it depends where you are. If there's something to look at, everybody stops. But yeah, not everywhere do you find a concentration of interesting plants. The tree, by the way, that I'm seeing there, that is not the Ratsiputz gang, although some of us are in there. That is a group in China, which this was, I think, in Yunnan province in the southwest part of China. It was one of their largest native trees. And we all, it's funny, I'm looking at these. I know all these people. I can tell you every one of them, but that was our travel group in China.
Yeah. What were you looking for when you were there in China?
Plants.
Anything? Anything? Is that when you found the?
We found that section of China has the plants that grow there typically grow very well in our climate here on the East Coast, and including Michigan and whatever. That's not true, by the way. I went to Tierra del Fuego and in that southern part of South America in another trip. Almost nothing that I got there grew well up here in Connecticut.
Really?
So, yeah, which is strange. Right?
Yeah, it's a lot warmer on the southern tip of South America than anything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. The combination of factors. Oh,
I was
showing
looking-
a picture
I was
of
looking up plants I was looking up plants that you'd introduced. Pierre's or were named for you. Pierre's purple. I think that's a great picture.
Yeah, we have a plant of that in front of. I should have shown you that. It's finished blooming. There's a plant of that right in front of our condo.
Wasn't that named by Daryl Probst that you
Daryl-
were just at his
Yeah,
place?
Daryl Probst, the same guy that I mentioned who breeds Coreopsis and many other things, also breeds epimediums, and he named that for me.
And he's been on the trips
You
too.
did
And
some
he has been with me to China, so and we just saw him a couple of weeks ago. We went up to see his epimediums in bloom. He has a really great collection of things that he has bred in the way of epimediums. Oh, peonies! I love peonies. They're in bloom here now.
Ours are just falling apart.
I wish they bloomed longer. It's
A hybridizer should work on
yeah.
that.
Spring ephemerals. That's the word. Spring ephemerals. We have to enjoy them while they last.
Well, my friend Burdette told me about peonies. She did dried flowers and wreaths and whatever. She said if you pick the peony when it's in bud, kind of marshmallow texture, but not
Yeah.
open yet, and you cut the stems as long as you want to use them, and wrap the bunch of stems that you've cut in plastic wrap and put them in your refrigerator. You can take them out a month later and put them in water and they'll still open. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. So she would, because she would use them in her flower arrangements for people later. So you'd have to save them inside the house to do that.
My late friend Barry Ferguson recommended taking a hammer to the stems at the bottom of the stems and crushing the stems, and that would increase their vase length. But frankly, I just can't do that.
Who is Fancy Franz Nursery? You said they have everything. Is that somebody who's been around?
Yeah, I've been there, and it's been quite a long time. But she has a collection of ferns that I don't know that any grower in the United States has that good a collection. But she's out in, I don't know, the Northwest. I can't remember. I've been there. I can't remember whether it's. Oh, you have the address. Is it Oregon or Washington? I don't remember, but she's way out there.
Let's see. I'm not sure that I got the address out there, but
Yeah.
it is fancyfranznursery.com, and it is definitely worth taking a look at. They had quite the extensive catalog.
Yeah.
Quite the extensive catalog.
And they do sell retail, so we never, I won't say never, but we're basically, we're always a wholesale business, and I'm no longer selling either wholesale or retail. I have a little garden mart I do on weekends just to keep myself out of trouble, but basically that's a good place to buy interesting ferns.
To keep yourself out of trouble. Okay.
Michelle is wondering, are there other ferns that will handle within the shade and dryness of a large maple tree nearby?
Boy, maples are tough.
Yeah, they are. They have a very shallow root system and they suck up all the water and nutrients. Oh, we got a picture of Benrup Blue. Look at that.
I found Benrup Blue. Yes, I said I'm going to look for some of these plants.
Where did you find that?
At Monrovia, I had it. I went.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the big wholesalers is still selling it. It's a nice color.
It's a beauty. I think we had one out in our yard. He gave us one a while back.
Oh, well, then
One of ours might be it.
there is a blue one. It's out on the
Yeah.
side of the driveway, and I wondered where that came from.
Yep.
Thank you, Pierre.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if I have time, I'll tell this story. I was 50 years ago, I got a phone call from some woman nearby Waterbury, Connecticut. And she said she had a bunch of seedlings that she wanted to get rid of, and was I interested? And I said, yeah, okay. I went over and dug up all these and there were thousands of these things. I didn't know what to do with them. So I had a colleague out in Oregon who specialized in iris, and I called him up and asked him if he wanted them, and he said, yeah, fine. So I sent him a bunch of these things, and I totally forgot about it. And then about 20 years later, I think it was the year 2000, I was in Houston, and I saw this beautiful Siberian iris in a Monrovia pot. And went over and said, that is the biggest and bluest iris that I have ever seen. Irises are not known to be blue, by the way. There are very few good blue ones. And I said, yeah, I wonder what that's called. I picked up the label and it said Iris Siberica Benrup Blue, and I nearly fainted. And it took me a while to figure out that where it had come from. Well, it happened. There was a meeting of the American Horticultural Society, and And it happened that Monrovia had a woman representing him at the meeting, and I asked her where it came from, and she told me. And so I called up my friend and said, what is this all about? I said, didn't I tell you I found this blue iris and I named it for you? Well, he may have told me, but I never remembered it. So I got some plants and I still offer it. If you look at bearded iris, there are no good blues. This is the best blue iris of any genus of iris that I'm aware of. It's just a good plant.
And
It's big. The flower is big.
And it came from an amateur breeder, right?
Well, yeah. The thing is, and this is part of the story. The woman that called me, and I remember distinctly, her name was Cunningham. I said, why are you getting rid of these? And she said, well, I had this boyfriend who was an Irish breeder, and he bought a sailboat and sailed off into the sunset, and I haven't seen him since, and I want these damn seedlings out of here.
Okay.
Plant stories.
That's how it got to California and back to Houston, Texas, and then eventually back to Connecticut.
I love it.
2-minute warning, kid.
Okay. Well,
Any other questions?
I am not.
I'm going to interject. The person that wanted to know about something for underneath maple trees. Now, I don't know about ferns. I definitely am not versed on ferns. Perhaps hay-scented, because I know it's shallow rooted. But I would have to suggest epimediums. Epimediums under maple trees, little heart-shaped leaves. They're wonderful. Ferns, I leave it to Janet and Pierre if they can come up with something.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to say that the genus Epimedium is probably the most underrated, undervalued, overlooked plant in the entire perennial plant business. They are gorgeous when they bloom. And again, short in bloom, very pretty blooms. There are many, many colors, but the foliage is just delightful. And some of them have bronze leaves. Some of them, there are so many different kinds, so many different sizes. And it's just something that, it would be worth a whole program just on them.
You have to wait.
You want me, you want Daryl Probst, I'll get them for you.
Okay, that would be great. You have to wait on the epimediums though. People are too impatient on that. It takes about 3 years before the epimediums get up some speed and start spreading themselves. And people will put them in and say, well, these aren't doing it. I see a question here about a container garden, wondering, and you did lots of containers at Sunny Border, those beautiful hypertufa containers and things. She wants to plant rosemary with some lettuce, basil, sage, sweet potato vines, and nasturtium. Are any of those not good to go together? We were talking about companion plants last time. Do you know whether any of those things, rosemary, lettuce, basil, sage, and sweet potato vine?
Well, okay. I think they'd all go together. I don't know that they would make a glitzy combination. When people plant containers, window boxes, that sort of thing, they're basically looking for color.
Well, that sounds like an herb garden.
If it's an herb garden,
she's talking about an edible container garden.
Well, then that'd be fine. There's no reason why these plants won't grow together. I mean, it's not like one is going to poison the other or anything like that.
No, I would say the only thing is that some, like the rosemary, don't want to be watered perhaps as much as the sweet potato vine.
Yeah.
Which would like and require more moisture.
Right.
But if she actually planted it in such a way that she was aware and just watered a portion of her container, it would probably work.
Yeah.
And the sweet potato vine are very hardy, so you could even say that, if you watered it twice a week, it would be adequate for the others without too much, perhaps, for the dry herbs, the ones that want it more dry.
Okay, it's a good point about companions, is putting the dry stuff together and putting the wet stuff together. During the growing season, you can get away with a lot of stuff too that you can't in the wintertime. Rosemary, people talk about rosemary being so hard there. Well, there's some new messages.
I will add that it's kind of
Nothing in,
a rather unusual combination. I don't think of sweet potatoes as being an herb. It's an edible for sure. And they do produce very edible potatoes, as well as being very, they have the gold leaf ones, the purple one, the variegated one, and so forth. So they're very interesting color-wise, but they're mostly edible. The variegated one doesn't produce anything of a fruit of a potato, but both the golden and the purple one produce very tasty potatoes.
Yeah. People are wondering where you're selling your plants. Are you selling your plants out of the greenhouse at the old nursery place in Berlin?
Yeah, no, I've sold all that. I have a piece of property nearby, and I've rescued a lot of plants, and that we were growing. So I have quite a lot of interesting plants, but I also
Your market is
Uh,
228.
we have a place on a marketplace. We offer plants, and we are at 2289 Chamberlain Highway in Berlin, Connecticut.
That's the
We
main.
have about 500 plants that we're offering. We do supplement from other growers. I know all the growers,
But
almost
you
all the
haven't
growers.
done mail order.
I don't do any mail order. I don't. I only do it on weekends just to keep
Yep.
out of trouble.
Well, I have that's the main drag through Berlin, Connecticut is Chamberlain Highway, right?
Well,
So,
one of the two main drags, yes.
yeah, and 229 is it a
2289, yeah.
2289? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that you have any listeners that are this far east, but if there's anybody there, we have a lot of interesting plants.
We got Judith, the one who was asking about the rosemary, for instance, is in the Boston area, so you might have some people show up. I just want to address before we leave that question about getting rid of the ferns that are invasive and they're hard to dig up. I need to say what I say to you, just have to keep trying. And
Yeah.
I mean, you really do. And you have to say, I'm not going to grow anything else until I get rid of this. And then the plants listen to you. They pay
Well,
be persistent.
Yeah.
Can you
try that with bindweed, by the way.
She does.
Can you smother it with the idea of the cardboard or straw or newspaper layers, and just after you cut the fronds back to smother it?
You can indeed smother it as long as you respect the idea of a colony. If that fern is across this property line in the neighbor's yard, or it's in the lawn, I've seen cinnamon fern marching through the lawn. If it's in the lawn, then any green outside your smother area could be feeding and keeping alive the roots underneath. So you have to trench around it and separate it from the rest of its kin if you're doing that. But it does work. It does work. I can't thank you guys enough for offering to do this and telling us about ferns. I think I'm going to get some male ferns again. And although the king looked like it was really hard to find, I'm gonna grow those because it's a pretty shape and it gives you some height in the shade. And if it stays like the other male ferns do until late into the fall, well, that's a great thing to have in the garden. So thank you very much. And
Well,
thank you, Cheryl, for all of the behind the scenes delivery of plants and everything else. Thank you.
Sorry if it was a bit disorganized. We tried our best. Okay.
It's free for all.
We're not disorganized. We're free for all. This is
I like that.
It's true.
Yeah.
For free for all.
All right. Hey, good
All
night.
right.
all right. Well, good night and have an enjoyable evening, and everybody have a good weekend. Take some of this information and use it. If your questions weren't answered in chat, don't worry about it. Steve and I will email you answers, because we have a whole lot of stuff that we didn't talk about ourselves, and we'll just have to put it into a
I
newsletter.
have to see you next Friday.
Yeah, we'll see you next Friday. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.